So about 12 years ago, really started seriously considering it, and my wife and I would have conversations periodically, and it just was not the right time. Our kids were still younger. They needed a lot of our time and attention, a lot of activities. And so finally, when our two oldest graduated from college, our youngest was in college, we thought about it again, and it was just a different feeling. And it was also at the time when COVID had set in, so I think us and a lot of other people were feeling a separation from the church because we couldn't have live masses, and it just felt like the right time, and everything kind of seemed to come together. So we both agreed that it was the right time to pursue it, and we had a great conversation with our pastor, and it really felt like God was kind of saying, now's the time. And I felt like I needed to get closer to God. I felt like it's either I step closer to Him or I risk moving further away. So it was just, kind of like I said, fortuitous, and the timing seemed perfect. And I really felt like I was being called definitively at that point. So I visualize the process. I have this visual where it starts off narrow, it gets really wide, and then becomes narrow again. And for me, what that means is you first start out, you don't really know what you're getting into. There's so much out there that you couldn't possibly predict. And then the next thing you know, you get into the process, you're getting inundated with information. You're having theology classes, spiritual direction, meetings, learning about the sacraments and everything. And then you're kind of overwhelmed. You're drinking through a fire hose. And as you get towards the end of the process, it really seems to narrow again. And it really just kind of comes down to, you realize the core tenets of what Jesus is telling us in the gospel. And it's just, He wants us to serve, He wants us to love one another, and He wants us to love God. And so the message suddenly gets very simple. So like I said, it's this process of starting out simple, getting very broad, and coming very simple again.